The alien planet, a swirling canvas of vibrant greens and deep purples, spun beneath the trembling hull of the Orion's Dawn. Captain Lyra Varys stared out the viewport, her heart racing as the ship plummeted toward the lush jungle below. The crew had set out on a routine exploration mission, but something had gone horribly wrong. An unexpected energy surge had struck the ship mid-flight, knocking out systems and sending them spiraling toward the surface. "Brace for impact," she shouted, her voice barely breaking through the chaos of alarms and the screams of her crew. The metallic groan of the ship echoed ominously as it barreled through the atmosphere, tearing through the clouds like a fallen star. With a bone-jarring crash, the Orion's Dawn struck the ground. Metal shrieked and twisted, and for a moment, all Lyra could feel was the violent jolt that surged through her body. She braced her hands against the controls, fighting to maintain consciousness as the cockpit filled with smoke and debris. The screams of her crewmates faded into a haunting silence, and her vision blurred. When the world stopped spinning, Lyra managed to pry herself free from the wreckage. Pain shot through her side as she took stock of her surroundings. The ship lay half-buried in a tangle of alien vines and twisted metal. The jungle loomed ominously around her, thick with underbrush and the sounds of unknown creatures stirring in the shadows. "Crew," she shouted, her voice hoarse. "Is everyone okay?" There was no immediate response, only the distant rustle of leaves. Panic gripped her heart as she staggered out of the cockpit, pushing against the remnants of the ship. She could see the bodies of her fellow crew members sprawled on the ground, some unmoving, others groaning in pain. "Lyra, help!" a voice called out, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. It was Reen, her second in command, trapped beneath a heavy panel. She rushed over, using all her strength to lift the panel enough for Reen to wriggle free. "What happened? How did we crash?" he gasped, blood trickling down his forehead. "Something attacked us, an energy pulse or a weapon. I don't know," she said, scanning the jungle nervously. "We need to get everyone to safety. This place feels wrong." As if in response to her words, a low growl echoed from the tree line. Lyra's blood ran cold. She had read about the planet's fauna during their briefings, large predatory creatures that roamed the jungles. "Get the others up. We need to move now," Lyra ordered, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her insides. With Reen's help, they managed to pull several crew members to their feet, but not all of them were in good shape. Some were injured, and others were disoriented from the crash. The jungle seemed to close in around them, the foliage thick and oppressive. Suddenly, a massive creature burst from the underbrush, a towering reptilian beast with glistening scales and razor-sharp teeth. It lunged toward them with a primal roar, eyes wild with hunger. "Run!" Lyra screamed, instinctively positioning herself between the creature and her crew. The beast lunged, jaws snapping just inches from her. With a surge of adrenaline, she darted to the side, grabbing a fallen branch as she moved. The crew scattered in different directions, screaming and gasping for breath. Lyra swung the branch at the beast, striking its snout. The creature recoiled, momentarily stunned. She seized the opportunity and bolted toward the trees, the sounds of her crew's panicked footsteps echoing in her ears. In the chaos, she spotted a human figure running towards them, a man with short, dark hair and a determined look in his eyes. He wasn't part of her crew. Who was he? "Follow me," he yelled, his voice cutting through the terror. Without thinking, Lyra sprinted toward him, trusting her instincts. As they collided, he glanced at her, his expression resolute. "I'm here to help. Let's get you out of here." The creature roared again, and Lyra's heart raced. They had no time to waste. With the human leading the way, they plunged deeper into the jungle, the looming danger close behind. The jungle erupted in chaos behind them, the roar of the beast fading only slightly as they pressed deeper into the thick underbrush. Lyra followed the human pilot, adrenaline pumping through her veins as she fought to keep pace. He moved with agility and confidence, weaving through the tangled vines and low-hanging branches as if he were born to navigate this alien world. "Who are you?" she managed to gasp, pushing aside the fear threatening to overwhelm her. "Captain Ethan Cole," he replied without breaking stride, glancing back at her. "I was scouting the area when I saw your ship go down. I came to investigate but didn't expect to find a full-blown ambush waiting for me." Lyra's mind raced. A human pilot. Here, she barely had time to process the implications of this new ally when Ethan suddenly stopped, raising a hand. They had reached a small clearing, the sunlight filtering through the canopy overhead, illuminating the foliage around them. "Everyone, over here," Ethan called, waving the rest of the crew to join them. They emerged from the underbrush, panting and disoriented, some injured but alive. "Is that everyone?" Lyra asked, scanning the group for familiar faces. "Looks like it," Ethan replied, his brow furrowed. "We need to regroup and assess our injuries. That creature isn't going to give up easily." As the crew gathered, Ethan's presence inspired a flicker of hope. He was different from them, human, yet undeniably capable. Lyra watched as he moved among her crew, assessing their wounds, offering a reassuring word or a steady hand. "Let's set up a temporary camp," he suggested, kneeling beside one of the injured crew members. "We need to treat these wounds and figure out our next move. This jungle isn't safe, and we need to find shelter before nightfall." While the others set about collecting supplies and tending to the wounded, Lyra found herself standing a little apart, her mind racing. She had always been the one in charge, the one everyone looked to for guidance. Yet here was Ethan, effortlessly taking control of the situation. A mixture of gratitude and irritation bubbled within her. As the crew worked, she overheard snippets of conversation. "What happened?" one of her crew members asked, looking at Ethan with a mixture of awe and confusion. "A malfunction, I believe," Ethan replied, his tone calm yet commanding. "It might have been an attack. I'll need to check the wreckage for clues." Lyra stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "You can't just leave us here. We need to stick together." Ethan turned to her, his gaze steady. "I understand, but we can't stay here too long. The longer we linger, the more vulnerable we become. We need to find a secure location to regroup and plan our next move." Lyra felt a spark of defiance flare within her. "And how do you propose we do that?" "You're just one person." His lips curved into a slight smile. "You're right, but I have some skills that might come in handy. I've done this before, Lyra. I can help." She hesitated, grappling with her instincts. "Fine, but you have to promise me that we'll prioritize getting everyone to safety first." "Deal," Ethan replied, extending his hand. She shook it, feeling an unexpected surge of trust. Perhaps he was right. Maybe they could accomplish more together than apart. As they prepared to move, Ethan began outlining a plan. "I've seen some signs of a settlement not far from here. We can use their resources to regroup and assess our situation. It's our best chance." As they trekked through the jungle, Lyra found herself watching Ethan closely. He moved with a predator's grace, scanning their surroundings, alert to every rustle in the leaves. His confidence was infectious, bolstering her own resolve as she followed his lead. But just as they were beginning to find a rhythm, the jungle erupted with the feral screeches of the creatures that had attacked them before. Lyra's heart raced as she felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. "Run," Ethan shouted, urgency fueling his voice. Without a second thought, Lyra took off, adrenaline flooding her system. The sound of heavy footfalls echoed behind them, the predator closing in once more. She pushed herself harder, following Ethan as he expertly navigated the twisted landscape. As they darted through the trees, Lyra caught a glimpse of Ethan, determination etched on his face. She felt a surge of admiration for the human pilot, who had come to their aid against all odds. In this moment of shared peril, she realized that they were bound together, fighting not just for survival, but for something greater. A chance to live, to thrive, and perhaps to forge an unexpected alliance between their worlds. The underbrush closed in around them as Lyra and Ethan sprinted through the dense jungle, the sounds of pursuing creatures echoing behind. Panic surged in her chest, but she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the path ahead. The vibrant greenery blurred past her as she dodged branches and roots, her mind racing. They had narrowly escaped once, but they needed a strategy if they were going to survive this hostile environment. "Head for that ridge," Ethan shouted, pointing to a rocky outcrop ahead. "We can get a better vantage point from there." Lyra nodded, her instincts kicking in. As they reached the base of the ridge, she quickly glanced back to see the monstrous shapes of the creatures breaking through the foliage behind them. They were fast, much faster than she had anticipated. "We need to move," she urged, scrambling up the rocky slope. Ethan followed closely, their breaths mingling in the humid air. They'd reached the top and paused, panting heavily. The view from the ridge was breathtaking. A sprawling jungle beneath them, punctuated by the occasional clearing and distant mountains. But the beauty of the landscape was overshadowed by the urgency of their situation. "We can't stay here long," Ethan said, scanning the horizon. "I can't see where those creatures are, but they won't give up easily. We need to find shelter." Lyra felt the adrenaline begin to fade, replaced by the weight of exhaustion. "I know a place, a cave I've used before. It's hidden from view and should keep us safe for a while," she said, her voice steady despite the fatigue. "Lead the way," Ethan replied, a hint of respect in his tone. They quickly descended the ridge, moving with purpose. Lyra took the lead, her familiarity with the terrain guiding their path. As they navigated through the dense foliage, she couldn't help but steal glances at Ethan. His determination was palpable, and there was a strength in his demeanor that made her feel safer despite the circumstances. After several minutes, they arrived at the mouth of the cave, concealed behind a curtain of thick vines. Lyra pushed aside the greenery and stepped inside, beckoning Ethan to follow. The cave was cool and dark, the air still and refreshing compared to the oppressive heat outside. "This will do," Ethan said, taking a moment to survey the interior. "We can rest here for a while and regroup." As they settled in, Lyra lit a small bioluminescent stone, casting a warm glow across the cave's walls. The soft light revealed intricate patterns etched into the rock. An ancient language, possibly a remnant of a long-lost civilization. "What's this?" Ethan asked, kneeling to examine the markings. "It's the language of my people," Lyra replied, a mix of pride and sadness in her voice. "This cave was once a refuge for my ancestors. They would come here to hide from predators and storms. It's a sacred place." Ethan's eyes widened in understanding. "So it's safe." "Relatively. It should protect us for now," she said, brushing her fingers over the carvings. "But we'll need to be cautious. If those creatures track us here—" "They won't," Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. "We'll keep watch, and if we have to, we'll fight." Lyra appreciated his confidence, but doubt lingered at the edges of her mind. She knew the jungle was unpredictable, and they were intruders in this world. As they settled into a temporary truce, Lyra felt the weight of their situation pressing down on her. "Thank you for helping us back there," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "I didn't expect a human to come to our aid." Ethan shrugged, his expression earnest. "I couldn't just stand by while you were in danger. It's what anyone would do." "No," she insisted, her voice steady. "Not everyone would risk themselves for strangers. You fought those creatures without a second thought." He looked away for a moment, contemplating her words. "Maybe it's because I've seen too much death in my line of work. It makes you realize what's worth fighting for." Lyra felt a swell of admiration for Ethan. He was not just a soldier, he was a protector. And in that moment, she understood that their alliance was more than just a necessity. It was becoming a bond forged in adversity. "Tell me about your world," she said, shifting the conversation. What's it like? Ethan's face lit up as he spoke about Earth, its sprawling cities, diverse cultures, and the beauty of its landscapes. Lyra listened intently, fascinated by his descriptions. In return, she shared stories of her own planet, painting vivid pictures of its history, flora, and fauna. As they exchanged tales, a connection began to blossom between them, one that transcended their differences. Maybe we're not so different after all, Ethan mused, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Lyra nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Perhaps not. But as laughter filled the cave, a sudden rustle from outside shattered the moment. Lyra's heart raced. They had to remain vigilant. This jungle was far from forgiving. The rustling outside the cave sent a jolt of adrenaline through Lyra. She exchanged a quick glance with Ethan, whose expression mirrored her concern. They instinctively moved closer to the entrance, their senses heightened, ready for whatever might come their way. "Stay low," Ethan whispered, crouching beside her. They peered out through the curtain of vines, hearts pounding in unison. The jungle was alive with sound, the cacophony of chirps and growls intertwining with the rustle of leaves. Suddenly, a small creature scuttled past the mouth of the cave, brightly colored and no larger than Lyra's hand. It paused, glancing in their direction, its tiny eyes glinting with curiosity. "It's just a harmless scavenger," she whispered, a mix of relief and caution lacing her words. Ethan nodded, his muscles still tense as they observed the creature disappear into the underbrush. "We need to keep watch, but I'm starting to think we're safe for now. We can use this time to plan our next move." Lyra nodded, pushing aside the anxiety that gripped her. "I know a way to navigate the jungle that might lead us to safety. There's an ancient ruin not far from here. It was once a place of worship for my people, a sacred site. If we can reach it, we may find shelter and answers about what attacked us." Ancient ruins. Ethan's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "That sounds promising. Lead the way." After gathering their strength and checking on the injured members of the crew, they set out again, cautiously navigating the thick jungle. Lyra took the lead, her familiarity with the terrain guiding their steps. As they moved deeper into the undergrowth, the sounds of the jungle shifted, becoming more melodic and less threatening. "Tell me more about these ruins," Ethan prompted as they walked. "What's so special about them?" "They were built centuries ago by my ancestors. The ruins hold stories of our history and connection to the planet," Lyra explained, her voice tinged with reverence. "It's said that the artifacts within can enhance one's abilities or even unlock hidden knowledge. If we can find something useful, it could help us defeat whatever attacked us." Ethan nodded, captivated by her passion. "Sounds like we'll need to tread carefully. Ancient sites can be full of traps and surprises." "Exactly," she agreed, her expression serious. "We must approach with caution. Many who sought to exploit the ruins have faced dire consequences." After a few more minutes of navigating the foliage, they finally reached a clearing. Before them stood the remnants of the ancient structure, half swallowed by the jungle. Towering stone pillars, etched with intricate designs, rose toward the sky, their surfaces weathered but still majestic. Vines curled around them, adding to the eerie beauty of the scene. "Here we are," Lyra breathed, awe mixing with nostalgia. "The Temple of Gyra." Ethan stepped forward, his eyes scanning the architecture. "It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it." As they approached the entrance, Lyra felt a deep connection to her ancestors. The air was thick with history, the remnants of prayers and rituals echoing in her mind. "Let's look inside," she urged, stepping through the threshold. The interior was dim, lit only by shafts of sunlight filtering through cracks in the stone. The walls were adorned with murals depicting ancient rituals and celestial events. Lyra ran her fingers along the engravings, feeling a surge of energy. "This is it," she whispered, reverence flooding her voice. "This temple holds the secrets of my people." Ethan stepped closer, observing the intricate designs. "Do you think any artifacts are still here?" "I hope so," she replied. "If we can find one, it could provide us with the knowledge we need to protect ourselves." They moved deeper into the temple, exploring chamber after chamber. In one room, they discovered a massive stone altar surrounded by offerings left long ago, dried flowers, clay figurines, and remnants of past rituals. Lyra's heart swelled as she recognized the significance of the space. Suddenly, Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts. "Lyra, look at this." He pointed to a stone pedestal in the corner, where a small orb shimmered faintly in the dim light. Curiosity piqued. Lyra rushed over. The orb was a vibrant blue, pulsating with a gentle glow. "What is it?" she asked, her heart racing. "I think it's an energy crystal," Ethan said, kneeling beside it. "These are often used in ancient technologies. It could be a source of power." As Lyra reached out to touch the orb, a surge of energy coursed through her fingers. Visions flooded her mind. Images of her people, their struggles, and the ancient connection they had to this planet. She gasped, stepping back as the weight of knowledge pressed down on her. "This crystal, it's more powerful than I imagined," she breathed, realization dawning. "It's tied to the very fabric of our existence here. If we can harness its energy, we might be able to understand what attacked us. And why." Ethan's eyes widened with understanding. "Then we need to take it with us." Just as she nodded, a low rumble echoed through the temple, shaking the ground beneath their feet. "We need to hurry," Lyra shouted, her instincts flaring. "If they found us once, they'll find us again." Ethan grabbed the orb, tucking it safely away in his pack as they sprinted back toward the entrance, determination fueling their steps. The weight of their shared mission pressed upon them, but they felt invigorated by the bond they were forging, a partnership that transcended their differences, united by the fight for survival and the promise of a brighter future. As they dashed back through the temple's entrance, Lyra felt a surge of urgency course through her veins. The low rumble had been a warning, a reminder that they were not alone in the jungle. Shadows danced among the trees, and the distant growls of the predatory creatures echoed ominously. "Stay close," Ethan called, glancing back to ensure the crew was following. The remnants of the temple faded behind them, swallowed by the dense foliage, but the weight of their newfound knowledge lingered. Lyra clutched the energy crystal's aura tightly in her mind, aware that it could be their salvation. They pushed deeper into the jungle, the path less defined as they maneuvered through twisting roots and underbrush. "Do you think we lost them?" Ethan asked, breathless but resolute. "I'm not sure," Lyra replied, scanning the shadows around them. "But we can't stop moving. We need to find a safe place to rest and figure out how to use the crystal." After a few more minutes of frantic running, they came across a small grove surrounded by towering trees. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor. "Here," Ethan said, slowing to a halt. "This looks safe for now." They quickly settled down, taking stock of their injuries and the situation. The crew gathered around, their faces a mix of relief and exhaustion. Ethan shared the details of their discovery at the temple, and Lyra could see the glimmer of hope in her crewmate's eyes. "Do you really think that crystal can help us?" Reen asked, rubbing the bandage on his head. "I believe it can," Lyra said, her voice steady. "It's tied to the very essence of this planet. If we can harness its energy, it might give us insight into our attackers and even enhance our abilities." Ethan nodded, his gaze shifting to the surrounding trees. "But we need to be careful. Whatever attack your ship might be searching for us, and if they sense that crystal, they'll come after it." The group fell into a contemplative silence, the gravity of their situation settling in. Lyra felt the weight of leadership press upon her, knowing that their survival depended on their next move. "Let's set up a watch," she suggested. "We need to rest but remain vigilant. If we can get through the night, we can begin deciphering the crystal's properties at dawn." As night fell, the jungle transformed into a chorus of strange sounds. The familiar calls of insects blended with the distant roars of unseen predators, creating an unsettling symphony. The crew took turns standing watch while the others tried to rest, their eyes heavy with exhaustion. Lyra sat beside Ethan, watching the flickering shadows dance in the moonlight. "What will you do if we survive?" she asked, breaking the silence. He glanced at her, a hint of surprise in his expression. "I haven't thought much about it. My mission was to scout and report back. But now—" He hesitated, his gaze turning distant. "Now I feel like I have a purpose beyond just following orders." Lyra felt a connection deepen between them, a shared understanding forged in their struggle. "I get that," she said softly. "I've spent my life trying to uphold my people's legacy. But now, I see a new path." As they spoke, an idea began to form in Lyra's mind. If we can harness the crystal's energy, we might be able to communicate with the creatures or even use it to manipulate the environment in our favor. It could be a means of negotiating or defending ourselves. Ethan's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "That's a brilliant idea. We could try to understand their motives. Maybe they attacked because they felt threatened." Lyra nodded, the pieces coming together. "We need to be strategic. Instead of running from them, we could find a way to coexist, to establish communication. If we can show them we mean no harm, perhaps they'll back off." Their conversation was interrupted by a low growl from the tree line, sending chills down Lyra's spine. She and Ethan exchanged glances, adrenaline surging through them. The creature's growl deepened, and Lyra felt a primal instinct kick in, fear mixed with resolve. "Everyone, wake up," Ethan shouted, his voice cutting through the darkness. "We've got company." The crew scrambled to their feet, eyes wide with panic. Lyra could see shadows moving just beyond the grove, dark shapes shifting in the moonlight. Her heart raced as she scanned the perimeter, desperately searching for a way out. "Get ready," she barked, her voice steadying the group. "If they attack, we'll use the crystal's energy to defend ourselves." Ethan nodded, determination etched on his face. "We'll fight together. We have to protect each other." As the growling grew louder, the first creature stepped into view, massive and powerful, its eyes glinting in the low light. Behind it, more shadows emerged, forming a menacing line. Lyra's pulse quickened as she gripped the energy crystal tightly in her hand, aware that this moment would define their fate. They were outnumbered, but they had something the creatures wanted: understanding. "Stand firm," she commanded, her voice rising above the cacophony. "We can do this." With her heart racing, she prepared for the confrontation, ready to fight for her crew and to forge an unexpected alliance with the shadows lurking in the darkness. The growls echoed around the grove, reverberating through the air and sending a chill down Lyra's spine. Her heart raced as she tightened her grip around the energy crystal, feeling its pulse synchronize with her own. The creatures moved closer, their forms shifting in and out of the shadows, muscles rippling beneath sleek fur. Each one was larger than a human, with elongated limbs and menacing claws, but their eyes glimmered with an intelligence that unnerved her. "Get back to back," Ethan shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of Lyra. The crew quickly formed a defensive circle, weapons drawn, eyes scanning the perimeter for movement. "Don't attack unless they charge." Lyra felt the weight of leadership settle heavily on her shoulders. "Wait, we don't want to provoke them, if we can communicate." But her voice was drowned out by another ferocious growl. The creatures advanced, their claws digging into the earth, low growls vibrating through the air. The leader, larger and more imposing than the rest, stepped forward, its gaze fixed on the energy crystal in Lyra's hand. "They want it," Ethan realized, raising his weapon, tension coiling in the air. "We can't let them take it." "No," Lyra exclaimed, her voice cutting through the escalating tension. "We can use it to show them we mean no harm." Ethan hesitated, his eyes darting between her and the approaching creatures. "Lyra, they're dangerous. We don't know their intentions. But we have to try," she insisted, feeling a sense of urgency build within her. If we're to find a way to coexist, we need to reach out, not fight. The leader of the creatures halted, its glowing eyes narrowing as it studied Lyra. She could sense the weight of its gaze, an ancient intelligence that surpassed mere instinct. Drawing a deep breath, she raised the crystal high, letting its luminescence spill into the grove like a beacon. "Wait," she called out, hoping her voice would reach them. "We mean no harm. We are not your enemies." For a moment, the growls faded, and silence enveloped the grove. The creatures paused, their muscles tensing, eyes flicking between the crystal and Lyra. She felt the energy of the crystal surging, responding to her intentions. With a burst of courage, she took a step forward, determined to bridge the gap. "Please," she implored, her voice steady. "This crystal is a part of my people's legacy. We seek understanding and peace. We wish to learn why you attacked us, and to find a way to coexist." Ethan's grip on his weapon loosened, uncertainty etched across his face. "Lyra, be careful," he urged, glancing at the creatures who remained watchful but motionless. But she pressed on, holding the crystal aloft as if it were a lifeline. "I promise we don't want to fight. We came to this planet seeking knowledge and harmony, not conflict. Help us understand." The leader of the creatures stepped forward, its gaze piercing through the dim light. A low growl reverberated in its throat, but it did not advance. Instead, it tilted its head, seeming to consider her words. In that moment, Lyra sensed the tide beginning to shift. The air around them hummed with potential, the crystal responding to her emotions and intentions. Suddenly, she envisioned a connection, a bond formed through understanding and respect. Without warning, the creature let out a low, resonating sound that reverberated through the grove, a mix of growls and deep rumblings. Lyra felt her heart skip a beat, unsure of what it meant. The other creatures watched intently, their postures relaxing slightly. "Lyra, what is happening?" Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible. "I don't know," she breathed, feeling a strange pull from the crystal in her hand. "I think it's trying to communicate." As the creature continued to vocalize, Lyra focused on the crystal, allowing its energy to flow through her. The vibrations matched the sounds emanating from the creature, and she felt an unexplainable connection forming. Suddenly, images flooded her mind, visions of their home, a beautiful land lush with life, but marred by conflict and destruction. She saw the creatures fleeing as their territory was encroached upon, their lives disrupted by outside forces. Panic and fear surged through her as the realization hit her. "They're afraid," she gasped, turning to Ethan. "They think we're here to harm them, just as others have done before." Ethan's eyes widened with understanding. "We have to reassure them that we are different." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. "We need to show them we come in peace. We have to offer something in return, a gesture of goodwill." She took a deep breath, letting the crystal guide her thoughts. "I have an idea." Kneeling, she placed the energy crystal on the ground between her and the creature. "This crystal contains the energy of our connection to this planet. It is powerful, but we can share it. Let it be a bridge between our peoples." The creature tilted its head, intrigued. The growls subsided, and the air became still, thick with anticipation. "I hope this works," Ethan murmured, his eyes locked on the leader. With a gentle gesture, Lyra closed her eyes, focusing her energy on the crystal. She felt it pulse beneath her fingertips, the warmth radiating outwards. "Let it symbolize our alliance, our shared commitment to coexist peacefully." The leader stepped closer, sniffing the air cautiously. Then, with a surprising gentleness, it leaned down, touching its snout to the crystal. In that instant, the grove exploded with energy. The crystal shimmered brighter than ever, casting brilliant hues of blue and green across the surrounding trees. The connection forged between them deepened, transcending language and understanding. In that moment, Lyra knew they had crossed a threshold, an unspoken promise of collaboration and coexistence, a shared vision of hope in a world fraught with danger. As the light enveloped them, Lyra felt the presence of the creatures shift. They were no longer adversaries. They were allies in a fight for survival, united by a common goal, a legacy that would carry them forward into the unknown. The brilliant light from the energy crystal bathed the grove in a radiant glow, pulsating like a heartbeat that echoed through the very essence of the jungle. As the light illuminated their surroundings, Lyra felt an indescribable connection forming between her and the creatures. They were no longer mere beasts of the jungle. They were sentinels, protectors of their land, sharing in the energy of the crystal. The leader of the creatures stood tall, its massive frame silhouetted against the glowing orb. Slowly, it withdrew its snout from the crystal, and the glow intensified, casting a halo around Lyra and her crew. "Lyra, it's working," Ethan exclaimed, awe filling his voice. She nodded, heart racing with excitement. "I can feel it. We're bridging the gap between our worlds." The energy from the crystal began to pulse outward, swirling in vibrant waves that danced through the air. The creatures, still wary but intrigued, stepped closer, their eyes wide with curiosity. One of the smaller ones ventured forward, tentatively touching the edge of the glow with a clawed paw. To Lyra's amazement, the crystal responded, sending out ripples of energy that enveloped the creature in a soft light. It seemed to relax, its tense muscles unwinding as it connected with the crystal's warmth. "I think they're starting to understand," Lyra said, her voice trembling with hope. "They can feel the intention behind our actions." Ethan watched in wonder as more creatures approached, drawn by the radiance. "What if we use this connection to communicate? Perhaps we can learn more about them, and what led to the attack on our ship." Lyra nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "Let's try. If they can sense our intentions, we can find a way to communicate. We just need to harness this energy." She reached out to the crystal again, feeling its pulse resonate with her own heartbeat. Closing her eyes, she envisioned the history of her people and the stories of the creatures, struggles, dreams, and the interconnectedness of all life on this planet. The energy from the crystal intensified, creating a vortex of light that swirled around them. The creatures watched in fascination, their eyes reflecting the myriad colors. The air grew thick with anticipation, and Lyra felt the weight of their shared moment press upon her. Suddenly, a flash of insight struck her. "If we can share our memories, perhaps we can foster understanding between us." Ethan's eyes widened with realization. "How do we do that? Will they even accept it?" "Trust in the connection," she replied. "We can project our memories through the energy of the crystal. It's not just a tool, it's a bridge to our souls." Gathering her resolve, she placed her hands over the crystal once more, urging the energy to flow freely. "Let us share the essence of who we are," she declared, her voice resonating with determination. With that, she focused on a vivid memory, a moment from her childhood when she had watched her people gather in celebration, the air filled with laughter, music, and the vibrant colors of their traditional attire. She felt the joy of belonging, the warmth of community, and the strength of unity. As she projected the memory, the energy from the crystal expanded outward, enveloping the grove in a warm light. The images took form, dancing figures, vibrant festivals, and the beauty of their culture. The creatures gasped collectively, their eyes widening as they experienced her memories. Lyra watched in awe as the leader's expression softened, and the others swayed gently as if caught in the rhythm of her recollections. Encouraged, Ethan stepped forward. "I'll share too." He closed his eyes and focused on a memory of his own, one of camaraderie with his crewmates, moments of laughter shared during a long journey through the stars. As he projected his memory, the energy from the crystal intensified, weaving together their experiences, creating a tapestry of shared emotions and understanding. The memories danced around them, swirling like a vibrant aurora that captured the attention of every creature present. The leader of the creatures stepped forward, its massive form radiating a sense of authority. It raised its head, letting out a series of deep, resonant sounds that echoed through the grove. The vibrations resonated with the crystal, and Lyra felt an electric surge of connection. Listen, she urged Ethan, her voice rising with excitement. It's trying to communicate. The creature's sounds transformed, shifting into rhythmic patterns that seemed to match the energy pulsing from the crystal. Lyra focused intently, trying to decipher the tones and vibrations. Slowly, she began to recognize a familiar cadence, a language of the heart, one that transcended mere words. It's sharing its own memories, she gasped, as images flooded her mind. She saw visions of the creatures living in harmony with the jungle, their families thriving, their bond with nature sacred and deep. She felt their fear and pain, the encroachment of outsiders, the destruction of their territory, the loss of family. Tears sprang to her eyes as the weight of their struggles washed over her. In that moment, an unbreakable bond formed, a shared understanding forged in pain and hope. They were not so different, Lyra realized. Both sides had faced hardship, had fought for their existence in a universe that often threatened to tear them apart. Ethan, we need to show them we're committed to protecting their home, she exclaimed, her heart racing with urgency. We can help each other. Ethan nodded, determination igniting in his gaze. Let's solidify our alliance. We can protect this land together. As the energy surged around them, Lyra reached out, her hands clasped with Ethan's, channeling their combined intentions into the crystal. Together, we will ensure our peoples thrive. The leader stepped closer, its eyes glowing with understanding. It let out a low, rumbling sound, one that resonated with acceptance and hope. In that instant, a new chapter began to unfold, a promise that together, they would defend their worlds and forge a path toward a shared future. United in purpose, Lyra and her crew stood at the dawn of a new era, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing they would not face them alone. As the energy from the crystal continued to swirl around them, Lyra felt a profound sense of purpose settle within her. The glowing bond between her crew and the creatures formed an unbreakable thread of trust, woven through their shared experiences and dreams. The leader of the creatures stepped forward, its massive form imposing yet strangely comforting. Lyra could sense its acceptance, a silent acknowledgement of their newfound alliance. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a belief that together they could achieve something extraordinary. Now that we have each other's trust, Ethan said, his voice steady, we need to discuss our next steps. We can't just stand here. Our ship is damaged, and we need to ensure the safety of both our crew and your people. The leader emitted a low rumble, a sound that reverberated with agreement. It gestured with its claw, pointing toward the depths of the jungle where the undergrowth thickened, suggesting a path forward. Lyra exchanged glances with Ethan and the crew, a spark of hope igniting within her. It wants us to follow, she said, taking a step toward the creature. Let's see where it leads us. With cautious optimism, they ventured into the heart of the jungle, the vibrant foliage brushing against them. The creatures moved alongside them, a silent yet powerful presence, guiding the way. As they traversed deeper, the landscape transformed. Trees towered overhead, their trunks adorned with luminescent flowers that pulsed softly in rhythm with the energy of the crystal. Lyra couldn't help but marvel at the beauty surrounding her. This place is incredible, she whispered, turning to Ethan. They'd protected it so fiercely. We can help them keep it safe, he replied, determination etched in his features. If we can repair the ship, we could even bring resources from the stars to aid them in protecting their territory. The leader paused, turning to face them, its eyes sparkling with curiosity. It seemed to sense their intentions, and Lyra could feel the energy of the crystal responding, creating a warm connection that linked them all. After a time, they reached a clearing, an expansive area where the sun broke through the canopy, casting golden rays upon the ground. In the center stood an ancient structure, a remnant of a bygone era, similar to the temple they had explored earlier, but adorned with intricate carvings depicting both human and creature interactions. This must be a place of significance, Lyra murmured, stepping closer. The carvings illustrated a shared history, one where their two kinds once thrived in harmony. We have to uncover its secrets. The leader approached the structure, examining the carvings with interest. It emitted a series of low growls, and the other creatures gathered around, their eyes fixed on the imagery. "Lyra, what do you think it's saying?" Ethan asked, intrigued. "I believe it's showing us their history," she replied, tracing her fingers over the carvings. "These depict a time when both our peoples collaborated, working together to protect this land from outside threats. This could be a blueprint for our future." With renewed energy, they began to study the carvings, piecing together the narrative of unity and resilience. It was clear that the creatures had faced adversity, yet they had always sought partnerships over conflict. Suddenly, a sound pierced the air, a low rumble followed by a cacophony of growls. The creatures tensed, eyes darting toward the tree line. Lyra's heart raced as she realized that the threat they had sensed earlier had returned. "What do we do?" Ethan asked, gripping his weapon tightly. "Stay calm," Lyra commanded, her voice steadying. "We'll defend this place together." The leader of the creatures stepped forward, its stance resolute. It let out a powerful roar that echoed through the clearing, an assertion of strength and authority. The other creatures responded in kind, creating a chorus that resonated with determination. Lyra felt the energy of the crystal surge in response, amplifying their collective strength. She stepped alongside Ethan, ready to face whatever emerged from the shadows. From the dense underbrush, a group of hostile creatures emerged, fearsome and snarling, clearly not of the same kind as their new allies. They were smaller, agile, with sharp teeth bared, and they advanced with predatory intent. "Form a line," Ethan shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of Lyra. The crew aligned with the creatures, ready to defend the sacred ground. "Lyra, focus the crystal's energy," Ethan urged, adrenaline coursing through him. Lyra nodded, channeling her thoughts into the crystal, feeling its energy respond. As the hostile creatures charged, she raised her hand, unleashing a burst of light that surged outward, enveloping the attackers in a radiant shield. The hostile creatures halted, confused by the unexpected force. The light pushed them back, creating a barrier that shielded Lyra and her allies from their advance. "Keep pushing them back," she shouted, feeling the crystal amplify her voice. "We can hold them off." With renewed determination, the creatures rallied beside her, their voices joining in a unified roar that echoed through the jungle. The power of their alliance surged forward, pushing against the hostile intruders. As the battle raged, Lyra felt a surge of hope. Together, they could protect not only their own, but also the land they had both come to cherish. In that moment, it was clear. They were no longer just human and creature. They were a united front, standing together against the darkness threatening to consume them. With each surge of light and each roar of defiance, they fought as one, a testament to the power of understanding and cooperation. And as dawn broke over the horizon, a new beginning emerged, one filled with promise, unity, and the hope of a shared future.